Hello, nerds. Thank you for watching Generally Nerdy. This is your weekend Nerdom. And on this week's episode, we're talking about some esports updates. We have a little bit of Nintendo news. We have some Funimation news. You know, the people who bring us some of the best anime stateside. They've got some really interesting news coming up. We have the King Killer Chronicles news. Finally, there's an update to the King Killer Chronicles news. Kind of, sort of, from Patrick Rothfuss. And then our last bit of news, well, in music news, we've got some Slipknot updates, which I find to be a little fascinating. I did it again, man. I forgot my hat.
Generally Nerdy.
Over the weekend, and I'm gonna go. Which camera should I go to? Let's go to this camera. So that, I don't know how well you can see that. Let's do this one too, and then maybe closer to that one, although it's going to be out of focus. This strange looking thing, I believe she called a teardrop grape. I mean, I'm a foodie, so like, I should have known this existed, but I didn't, and it's kind of crazy. Do you know what a teardrop grape is? Let's talk about this in the comments section, because I'd never seen them before, but they're delicious. So, news about the channel. I'm going to be putting out probably a shotgun blast of things that have just been sitting, collecting digital dust in my computer, because I've had so much other stuff going on, and honestly, just doing this one video every week is a lot more to undertake than I thought it was. But I do have 2 more interviews left from Starfest, the Starfest cosplay music video, the Denver Comic-Con cosplay music video, the Salt Lake Comic-Con cosplay music video. All of these are in some form of done, so they should be up relatively soon. I'm going to try and get them done by the end of the week, so that by the time this is up, I can say, hey, look, I have actually, followed through with things. But otherwise, nothing crazy going on. Not going on an adventure in photography this week, so I can't really talk about that yet, because there's not going to be one happening until I get caught up on the videos I'm backlogged on. Which, again, there's 2 of those. Those videos take a little bit longer because I make the music specifically for the video. So if it has no music, it doesn't really work, right? So the video's done. I just have to finish the song, and it takes me a second to do electronic music. I can write a song on my guitar relatively quickly, but this is a stretch of my abilities in multiple ways. Anyway, enough rambling about things. Let's get into the actual news. And this week, we're starting with video games. Two episodes ago, we talked a little bit about the League of Legends quarterfinals. Those happened, and I have the results here. The quarterfinals, the Samsung Galaxy versus Longzhu Gaming round went to Samsung Galaxy. SK Telecom won versus Misfits Gaming. SK Telecom took it. Fnatic versus Royal Never Give Up. Royal took it. And then Cloud9 versus Team We, Team WE, I guess, took it. So the finals, or the semifinals rather, we have SK Telecom versus Royal Never Give Up. SK Telecom came out on top. And then Samsung Galaxy versus Team WE. Samsung Galaxy came out on top. And that happened just this morning. So The finals are going to be next weekend, and we'll discuss. I don't know if you guys caught any of the semifinals. I didn't catch any of the quarterfinals, unfortunately, but I did watch the Team WE versus Samsung Galaxy round, and wow, that was intense. It started off really slow, and if you haven't watched it, put it into your search in YouTube and find it. Better yet, I'll put a link to it in the description. It was kind of a slow burn at first. Samsung Galaxy was just building all of this momentum, and very, very slowly, and then all of a sudden it was done. It took like almost an hour, I believe, and it was incredible. Yeah. So if you haven't watched that yet, man, definitely go watch that. I will try and be a little bit more active on the finals since it's the World Finals. In other esports news, we have the Eleague Injustice 2 competition going on. So Group A was on Friday. Group B will be, where is it? November 3rd, so next Friday. And then the following Friday after that will be the championship bracket, and that is the November 10th Friday. Alright, I got lost in thought. I watched almost the entire Group A bracket, and anyone who bet on this bracket lost some money, man, because SonicFox not only lost his first round match, but then lost his final match as well. So SonicFox, the dude who lives and eats and breathes NetherRealm Studios gaming, lost in a tournament, in like one of the biggest tournaments even. And man, those two matches between him and Forever King were intense. And on the second match, if you watched it, then this is a little spoilery if you haven't watched it yet, so definitely go watch that. But if you watched it, you had to be thinking the same thing I'm thinking. By the second match, you're going, why are you using Captain Cold, bro? Like, seriously, what is going on? Why are you using Captain Cold? Batman is way too fast of a character in the hands of somebody moderately good. Like, let me reference my notes. When he was playing Nubcakes, and it was the round before he got put out finally. It was Nubcakes, who was still a great player. Like, don't get me wrong. If you're in the E-League tournament, then you're damn good. Just for being in the tournament, they're giving you $500. So that says something about their standards for who they let in. But Nubcakes is definitely not one of the better players in the tournament. And he was working SonicFox for a minute, and SonicFox finally had to switch up his character. No, I take that back. He was Captain Cold through that whole thing, but Nubcakes took 2 matches. So that was insane. The whole time I'm going, dude, why? You're gonna... And then he won against Nubcakes, and I was like, okay, now let's learn from this. Being as that you lost to Forever King once, let's learn that mistake and go with somebody you're stronger with than Captain Cold, because Captain Cold's too damn slow. Anyway, it was insane. If you haven't watched it, I will put link to that in the description as well. And man, that was some intense gaming. In other video game news, we have a really interesting announcement from Andy Serkis. So, for anyone who doesn't know, Andy Serkis was Gollum in Lord of the Rings. He was King Kong in the reboot with Jack Black a few years ago. He is the guy that has taken the mocap suit and made it his own. He's also in the Avengers movies, and he's done so much stuff. He's Caesar in the Planet of the Apes movies. Done all of this stuff. About 90% of his work has been motion capture. And actually, he has done so much motion capture work, he redesigned the traditional mocap suit, and now they call it the circus suit. It's not circus like da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's more circus like Andy Serkis, as in Serkis. Anyway, so Andy Serkis, because he's revolutionized motion capture, and motion capture is predominantly done for, well, now it's pretty heavy-handed in movies, but it's also 90% of making a video game believable anymore, because there has to be an actual person behind these movements in order to make them look real. And that's something that we learned a little while ago in video games, and they're learning now in movies. Anyway, so because he's revolutionized the industry of motion capture, he also has a company called the Imaginarium, and I don't know exactly how it leaked, but it leaked that the Imaginarium is going to start making video games. He's doing work in Black Panther. Pardon me while I consult my notes. Performance Capture Studio set to release a Planet of the Apes video game later this year. So we went from not knowing Andy Serkis is doing video games to all of a sudden there's a video game that's going to be out in just a matter of months. So that's really interesting. Just wanted to share that just because Andy Serkis is such a revolutionary person in the movie industry. Let's hope he can do the same thing for video games. I am going to pass that off to you guys a little bit, and what do you think we're going to get out of the Imaginarium? Are we going to get quality stuff, or is it just going to be Hollywood razzle dazzle and it's going to be really shallow gameplay and nothing really to write home about? Let's talk about that in the comment section. On to Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic news. So, backwards compatibility is awesome. No, we are not getting a new KOTOR. I wish. That would be awesome, because then we would re-canonize all of the things that happened in those two games. However, we are getting backward compatibility on the Xbox One for the original Knights of the Old Republic. So, the original Xbox. And along with that, there's a whole list of great games that are now backwards compatible from Xbox One to Xbox, the original Xbox. The list, I'm going to give it to you quickly. The list is Black, Blood Rain 2, Crimson Skies, High Road to Revenge. Not the original Crimson Skies for some reason. Dead to Rights, Fusion Frenzy, Grabbed by Ghoulies, The King of Fighters Neo Wave, Ninja Gaiden Black, one of the best platformer games you will ever play. Where was I? Prince of Persia, for all intents and purposes, predecessor to the Assassin's Creed games, which we talked a little bit about last week. Psychonauts, Red Faction 2, Sid Meier's Pirates, one of the premier producers of RTS games, and Star Wars KOTOR. So that's a pretty hard-hitting list, man. That is some great news in the world of back compat. And a lot of this stuff is like people, like, yeah, we wanted backward compatibility, but we never thought in a million years we were gonna get backward compatibility all the way to the original Xbox. So yeah, that's fantastic news. Now we're talking Nintendo news. So, Nintendo Switch had an update a little while ago. I don't remember exactly when it was. It was within the last 2 weeks, I believe. Updated their software to 4.0.0. And with this update, they, unbeknownst apparently, they made it a thing that you can now use your Gamecube controller on your Nintendo Switch. There is one caveat. You have to use the adapter from the Wii U, but still, that's pretty impressive. You're missing one button because the Nintendo Switch added a button to their control scheme. So you're missing one button, but there is now the possibility that they're working on a Smash Brothers game for the Nintendo Switch, which is it's been out for a little while. I'm not saying they're overdue, but it's getting close to that point. It's just Smash Brothers, and that also gives us the possibility for that virtual console that we've been talking about. So then Reggie Fils-Aime said, oh no, that was an accident. We didn't mean to make this, the GameCube controller work on the Switch. We just made a patch so that you can use third-party peripherals with the Switch, and in so doing, made that adapter from the Wii U work on the Switch. So don't read too deep into it. But we know Nintendo doesn't really make a whole lot of mistakes. So they're trying to keep something under wraps. My guess is Smash Brothers, because the world of esports is a demanding and very lucrative world to be in. Smash Brothers for the Switch has to come out soon. And then our last bit of news, speaking of crazy peripherals, the Kinect for the Xbox has officially been discontinued. Let me consult my notes. So as of 2013, where did it go? Yeah, as of 2013, PrimeSense, the company that created the technology for the dual cam in the Kinect, they sold or they were bought out rather by Apple, and then so that, I don't think that's what's killing it. I think they haven't seen the sales they want, and because of that, they're discontinuing the Kinect. But for those of you that use it for non-Xbox purposes, there is light at the end of the tunnel, because Alex Kipman is the creator of the Kinect. He's working on an alternate reality headset called HoloSense. So it's turning into alternate reality instead of just really awesome 3D depth perception. But also, some of that tech is now in the Apple iPhone, in the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 10. So can we take a second and just talk about this whole naming thing with Apple, by the way? So you release the iPhone 8, and then you release the 10. Where the hell did the 9 go? I was all down with the idea of calling it the iPhone X because it's a special edition, 10 years, blah, blah, blah. That's not what they want. They want you to call it the 10, even though there's no 9. Anyway, moving on to other things, most specifically is movie news. So, in movie news, we've got some interesting stuff. So, the first bit is Rob Zombie has said recently, well, no. He has not confirmed it. However, it has been unofficially confirmed that he is working on the script for a sequel to The Devil's Rejects. Now, sequel? How can you do a sequel to a movie where all of your cast, not just like the main cast member, but all of your main cast are dead? It doesn't make any sense. So the conjecture is that perhaps it's a prequel, perhaps it's a meanwhile kind of story, something that was happening at the same time as the other two movies. Devil's Rejects, House of 1,000 Corpses, those movies. Very interesting. He said that he didn't want to do a sequel to it. He didn't want to do a third movie in this franchise, because if you set yourself up for another movie, then you don't have any gravity with the ending. There's no weight with the ending of your second movie. So in order to get past the sophomore slump, if you will, for his second movie, he just said there's not going to be a third movie. And now that his last few movies haven't done as well as he wanted them to, and Devil's Rejects probably being his top grossing movie that he's made, aside from, I think, the Halloween movies. But even those, he doesn't have the rights to do that. He also technically doesn't have the rights to do anything with Devil's Rejects, because they are owned by Lionsgate. So he's in a similar situation with that property as of the last time it was announced, anyway, as the last time it was spoken of. He's in a similar situation with his property, Devil's Rejects, as Terrence Zanuck is with Repo, the genetic opera. Terrence Dunant can't do anything with Repo, and Kevin Smith is in a similar situation with a lot of his older stuff. The reason he can't do a proper Mallrats sequel, aside from the fact that it was like pulling teeth to get the cast to sign on, but he can't do a proper Mallrats sequel because he doesn't own that property. That belongs to Miramax, I believe. Harvey Weinstein jokes, you keep them to yourself. We're not here to talk about that. So Zombie has unofficially made it known somehow that he's working on a sequel or something to do with the Devil's Rejects prequel, an in-between movie, what happened between House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects. Not that there was a whole lot of time that passed there, but there was some time. Something along those lines. So keep your eyes peeled. We're definitely going to be talking about this because Rob Zombie is a really interesting filmmaker and the fantastic music. Well, fantastic. He's not a very talented musician, but he is a lot of fun and definitely rocks out really great. So anyway, moving on, we had an official announcement for the DC Extended Universe this week. Zachary Levi, that guy. He's been in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I can't remember exactly who he was, but he's like a recurring character. He's been in a couple of movies. And he was in Heroes, and he's just been in all kinds of things. He was on that TV show that was on before or after Heroes, when Heroes originally ran. I can't even remember the name of the show. It was his name. And that was like, he was a nerd, and he worked at like a Best Buy knockoff place, and he was part of the nerd herd. And anyway, that guy, he's going to be grown-up Shazam. He's going to be the superhero. I don't know about you, but I don't really think of Zachary Levi as a superhero. Although, there is a lot of argument to be made based on his work in Heroes and based on his more serious stuff. There's a lot of arguments made that he will do a good job of it. So I'm not opposed to Zachary Levi being the adult Shazam. It's just an interesting casting choice. So only confirmation so far is Zachary Levi will be Shazam. We don't know who the child is going to be, and The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, is going to be Black Adam. Now, it was also recently announced that The Rock will, not likely, they still haven't said 100%, but it's not likely that he will show, no, I take it back. The announcement wasn't that he's not going to be in the Shazam movie, it's just that he's not going to be the villain in the Shazam movie. Originally, there was going to be a 2-movie arc that introduced us to Shazam and Black Adam. And by the end of the second movie, Shazam will have defeated Black Adam, and it will, yay, rejoice. That's not going to happen now. We are still getting 2 movies. They're just going to be separate. They're not going to be linked directly. The Shazam movie will have a primary villain that is not Black Adam, and then the Black Adam movie is going to be starring The Rock, and that's all we know. So, that also... Yeah. Then that's where it stands so far. Those are the announcements that have been made for Shazam and Black Adam. Moving from DC to Marvel, Sony Marvel, though, a little bit more information about the Venom movie has come out. So Venom is not going to be linked to the proper Disney Marvel Cinematic Universe. It is going to be potentially the start of its own Sony Marvel Cinematic Universe. So we've got the Sony Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Disney Marvel Cinematic Universe, and then the Mutant Marvel Universe, which is Fox. So we've got 3 separate Marvel... I just... Play nice, guys. You're all gonna make so much money if this becomes this. That's all I got to say about that. Oh, okay. No. That's not all I have to say about that. I take it back. The reason that the rumor mill is turning in this direction, that Venom is going to be the beginning of a Sony Marvel Cinematic Universe, God, that's such a mouthful, is because they are already planning a Black Cat Sable movie to come out after the Venom movie, and those will be linked somehow. So this is the start of a Sony Marvel Cinematic Universe. Lame, I know. They should just... It's all Marvel. You're all... Yeah, okay, so Fox is primarily in charge of the movie, or the mutant movies, and then Sony is primarily in charge of the Spider movies and those Spider-Verse stuff and whatever else they own the rights to. And then Disney is primarily in charge of everything else. Okay, that's fine. But just play nice and everyone wins. Anyway. Moving along to an interesting segue bit of news, because this is both movies and television and video games, technically. But this doesn't have to do with... let me stop being vague. Konami, the people who stopped making proper video games and killed that Silent Hill game that we were supposed to get, directed by Guillermo del Toro and starring freaking what's his name? Daryl. Why can't I think of his name? Oh man, the internet's gonna hang me for that. Anyway, they stopped making proper games. That's why that game died. But now they're gonna start doing a movie. They're based on Contra, and not just a movie, but a movie and a TV show, live-action TV show. There is a teaser for it already, so that means they're in production for it. That means there exists a script and things, and they're shooting it. There's not a whole lot that's really known about it so far. Yeah, that's it. It's going to be a TV series and a movie, and they're both live action. And that kills our movie news. Next, we're going to be moving into possibly the largest bit of section of news for this episode, as I feel like it usually is television news. TV news. Let's get one thing clear. If you have not seen any of the shows we normally talk about on this show, then you should probably go watch them, because I'm about to spoil some things. And the first thing I'm about to spoil is Stranger Things. It's been out all of 72 hours, and I watched all 9 episodes. And then also the Beyond Stranger Things post-show. I think I watched all but one of those because I fell asleep. But anyway, I've watched... The important part is Stranger Things. And wow. Couple of things to say about this. One, anything critical I have to say is second fiddle to the fact that this was a great season. I thoroughly enjoyed this second season of Stranger Things. There are a couple of things that probably could have been cut from this season. I felt like there was a little bit of slow movement in the beginning, and I know the Duffers kind of do that, but some of that slow movement wasn't exactly necessary. The big brother to Max, Daniel, I believe his name was. I feel like all of that side stuff with him feasibly could have been cut or at the very least trimmed down. Like, there's no... I don't know, it just seemed like they were focusing too much on their human antagonist and not enough on the supernatural antagonist that really this show is about. It is about the human connections and kind of taking some tropes from the 80s and turn them on their heads a little bit, but I feel like the covert racism, well, not really covert, the racism and the violence associated with this character just didn't play as well as I think they wanted it to. So there's that. The other thing is, I feel like and partially because of... Oh, no. I'm getting ahead of myself. The other thing that I feel like could have been trimmed or potentially cut out entirely, although probably not entirely because some of it was necessary, was Elle's relationship with number 8. I can't remember her name. Kali, I think, maybe? Yes, we do get to see a little bit more of this world, and we do get to see that Hawkins is this small town, and all of these things that are happening in Hawkins, nobody in the big city knows about. Yeah, we get that element. We also get the relationship with Elle and her sister. And by the way, if they were both raised from infancy in the same lab, how does one have a British accent or an Indian accent, I believe, and Elle and the other one doesn't? The other one has a kind of broken American accent because she doesn't really talk a lot. That kind of removed me a little bit when you heard Kali. I'm gonna just keep calling her Kali until I can remember her actual name. Number 8. Let's call her 8. Until 8. The relationship with 8 for Elle was interesting, but not 100% needed. I feel like you could have covered the beneficial story elements from that relationship with her going to find Mama, her going to find her mother, and so in that psychic in the nether, or whatever you want to call it, the in between where they were. When she found Mama, and then she goes to find the Mama in the physical world, that whole scenario could have also taught her to harness her anger and harness these painful things to improve her power. Instead, she had to go to the city and have this whole other little side quest that didn't further the main story arc. You know, did very little for the main story arc. You could have cut that down to, I don't know, half of an episode worth of her finding Mama, and then Mama in the in between, because in the real world her mind was scrambled. But she was conscious-ish in the in between, so she could have taught Elle through some sort of loop how to harness her anger and how to do the things that she did, and then we wouldn't have had to use this other storytelling device of the sister. I feel like if you're going to introduce the sister, then make her integral in the end scenario. When you're fighting the Mind Flayer, then the sister needs to be part of that fight. Otherwise, this whole side story just loses its power. Or, better yet, keep the bit where she goes to find Mama and trim that down a little bit and make her reunion with Hopper a little sooner, and then Hopper realized, I gotta do something to teach her how to deal with herself or the world around her, and that be where she learns how to harness her anger and something. I feel like they didn't use the sister to her full potential, and because of that, she didn't need to be part of the story. That's just my takeaway from it. I'm gonna give this one off to you guys. I know that some of you, a lot of you probably, have finished watching the Stranger Things season 2. What did you think? Did her interactions with her sister need to happen? Did the big brother need to be such a main story point? Like, I don't know. I'm going to start talking in circles if I don't move on. Let's move on into Preacher. So Preacher just got picked up for a season 3. We talked when Preacher ended its season 2 about how they're still not to the comic book story. Now, I know that it's a tired nerd device to bitch that, oh, it's nothing like the comic books. The comic books are better, blah, blah, blah. In this case, that's a legitimate observation, A. And B, it just needs to be we need to get at least into that same territory so an even comparison can be made, because this whole before the comic book stuff is getting really slow and nothing exciting is happening. So hopefully now that they are officially into going to have at least a season 3, we are going to get some of the similar territory so we can make a fair comparison. Next, we are moving into Walking Dead. Alright, so last week I told you that Walking Dead was airing as I was filming. That was not an exaggeration. So, as a means of keeping up on it, I'm going to record a little addendum to this episode after I watch this week's episode as well. But in the meantime, let's do reaction to Mercy, episode 1 of season 7 for The Walking Dead. This was exactly what I wanted. I've said it so many times before, and I will continue saying it until I'm blue in the face or something. This is the best television show on right now. Probably the best television show ever. That's pushing it a little bit, but it's easily the best show that's been on the last decade. And it's not because it's zombies. Yes, I do like zombies, but the show focuses more on the people involved and less on zombies. And actually, it's I think one of the reasons it's the best show on television is because the post-apocalyptic setting, zombies included, kind of acts as a means to strip the humanity from those who would be forced into it if this were a contemporary show. So what I mean by that is Negan. In the proper world, Negan was probably some arrogant corporate type or mechanic, possibly even something where he could really be a man's man and he could really feel like he was in charge. However, because laws are a thing and because there is a social order that he is not in charge of, he was forced into being a regular part of society. Now, let's transfer someone like Negan into this post-apocalyptic era, and there are no laws that say you have to do this way, and you can only marry one woman, and you're not the biggest fish in the sea. So in his little world, in this little dichotomy he's created, he is the biggest fish in the sea, and so he can take any woman he wants to be his wife, and he can kill people at random just to send a message, and it makes you second guess everyone's intentions, and therefore you're watching with more intent. You are paying more attention. It is the best show on television. So we've got Hilltop, which is represented by Maggie. We've got Alexandra, which is represented by Rick, and then we have the Kingdom, which is represented by Ezekiel, or not Ezekiel, the King. Why can't I think of his name? Yeah, Ezekiel. Okay. So, at the end of season 6, Rick found his backbone and decided he was going to kill Negan. He himself was going to kill Negan. And so now, at the beginning of this episode, we're rallying all 3 of these settlements, and we're declaring war. And so I thought we were going to get another season 5, I believe it was season 5, where you wait the entire season before you start to see any. It might have, yeah, no, it was season 5 when they first got to Alexandria, where you wait an entire season for something to happen. And yes, slow storytelling happens. Sometimes it is necessary, and that the showrunners, people in charge of Walking Dead, know when a season needs to be slow. We need to feel this sense of security, and in order for Negan to be that much more of a douchebag, so we wage war. In this one episode, we go from, all right, you all have to the count of whatever to come out and swear that you will live by our rules, and you will be saved if you do so. We go from that to, all right, now we're just going to destroy your compound and send a freaking herd of walkers into your doors in a matter of like 5-10 minutes. So it was, oh man. And then the people on the outside was where are we? Carol, Daryl, Morgan, and Tara are the ones that are sending the walkers in, but they're telling the story so that it seems like Carol, Daryl, Morgan, and Tara are doing all of these things at the same time as what's happening, except for, you see Daryl sometimes, so they're going back and forth with the timeline. Oh, anyway, great episode. I'm really excited for episode 2, which is on right now as I'm filming this. So again, I will do a short reaction to it tomorrow and add that to this.
All right, guys. So I watched this week's episode of Walking Dead. This show is so good. We know this is the adaptation of the all-out war story arc from the comics. What we're not certain of is who's going to die. So they made us think Morgan was dead for a second. They implied that Rick might be dying, though we know Rick's not going to die. So by the end of this season, I project we are going to lose, at least one major character. I don't know if it's going to be one of the core members of the group, or if it'll just be one of the important people from Alexandria, or maybe even the Hilltop. I don't know, man. It was fantastic. So, spoilers, just whatever. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's the best damn thing on television. So if you're not already watching it, then you're broken. All right. I'm going to get to the end because that's the important part. The whole episode is a continuation from last week, where we get a lot of death and destruction, and we're picking up in the middle, or what we're led to believe by the end of this is the middle of this fight, because by the end of it feasibly is the end of this fight. So we see a lot of, it looks like the good guys are winning, right? It looks like they're playing it smart. They're not pushing in too hard. They're just holding their ground and killing as many of the saviors and as many of the bad guys, many of the people in the sanctuary as possible, because once they're dead long enough, as long as they don't suffer a head wound, then they're going to come back as walkers, and then the walkers will take care of the rest of the living in the area, and then they can move on, theoretically. Rick gets sloppy at the end of this episode. So before we get to Rick being sloppy, and he has good reason to be sloppy. I'm not faulting him for it, but we see Aaron. Pretty sure it's Aaron. I misspoke. Ross Marquand's character. I'm pretty sure it's Aaron. Anyway, we see him kind of under a hail of gunfire. Or not him, his boyfriend. I'm sorry. It's the guy who's his boyfriend. I can't remember that character or the actor's name. But they're all under a hail of gunfire. They're across from each other, and the boyfriend is watching his friends die around him. Effectively, they took to their training a little poorly, so they're jumping out in the middle of a hail of bullets. They've got plenty of cover, so like it's a TV show and nobody's a good shot, nor are they really smart marksmen in TV shows. I understand this, but they just start dropping. Like, yeah, they took a lot of saviors out with them, but they start dropping around this guy, and he's into a little bit of shell shock, it would appear. So Aaron again, the names, Ross Marquand, takes his vehicle, which is covered with the cover metal plating, and then takes it over to his boyfriend to be supportive of his boyfriend. Then we see that he's got a bullet wound in his gut. So he might be the only death. I might be calling this little late, because he is important-ish. He's probably a secondary important character. He's not a primary, but he's still one of the settlers in Alexandria, and that's kind of the end of that battle. And then we don't get any sort of resolution to the situation with Negan and Ezekiel. So Negan and Ezekiel are still in a trailer somewhere, just the two of them, surrounded by a sea of walkers, which is how last week's episode ended. Now, I don't know what's going to happen there, man. Ezekiel's not gonna kill Negan. That's not how that death happens. But is Negan going to kill Ezekiel, or are they going to team up together long enough to get out, and then they'll break free of each other and nobody will kill anybody except for some walkers in the meantime? So that's apparently to be left up to next week. But the end of this is kind of the big moment. So Rick and Daryl are going through this warehouse where they're told there is a stockpile of weapons. And if they can get to this stockpile of weapons and either dismember or dismantle it or take them, then that's a lot less weapons that the Saviors are going to have to go back after Alexandria and the Hilltop and so on and so forth, the kingdom. So they get into this warehouse, they can't find the weapons, they go through all the floors, and in the top floor they run into what appears to be the guard of the weapons. And Daryl's in different rooms. They split up so they can cover more ground, because it appears to be a relatively abandoned, if not completely abandoned, warehouse. And Rick gets into a hand-to-hand battle with this guard, what is perceived to be a guard. And he kills him because he's Rick, and he is the hero of this story for all intents and purposes. And then he goes into the room, which this guy was guarding, and there's no weapons. But there is a baby crib. And inside this baby crib is a little baby girl. And he breaks. With good reason, because he has just made an orphan of this child. And so he's gone from the traditional war viewpoint of my enemy is not human, which in this post-apocalyptic area is kind of an easy mindset to get into, it would seem. Because there are so many human-looking creatures around you that are not human anymore. So if you equate your enemy with the walkers, then it makes it easier to kill them, right? So by finding this baby girl, he humanizes his enemy and breaks down. And man, it's heavy. Episode number 2, and you're crying. Like, I mean, I didn't literally cry, but this is one of the closest times I got to crying while watching The Walking Dead. Just emotional, just really rips it out of you. And so while he's reconsidering his viewpoint on the Saviors, and we gotta kill them all, was how he walked into this, and now he's going, well, maybe we just have to kill the ones that are not going to convert. Is kind of what it would seem that his mindset is changing to. And as he's standing there contemplating this, we get a visit from season 1, which I only vaguely, it might not have been season 1, it might have been season 2, but I only vaguely remember this guy. I can't even remember his name now that I'm doing this. I should have brought my notes with me, but we're car studio in it just so I can get this into this week's Week in Nerdom. But he is now working with the Saviors. He has Rick at gunpoint because Rick lost his gun in the battle with the guard guy. And he has radioed for the Saviors because the Saviors were distracted. There was explosions and things, so they went off to check that out. And then that left Rick and their little exploring party to take out the sanctuary where the Saviors live. And for those of you that watched One Tree Hill, or your girlfriends made you watch One Tree Hill, Mouth was in this episode. Very, very briefly. We didn't see him die, so I would imagine because he's a kind of a well-known, he's a well-ish known actor on TV at least. I would imagine he's going to be in future episodes, so that's kind of a random little Easter egg. Anyway, so Rick is at gunpoint. This guy has just shown him that he's called in the Saviors, and then we cut to credits. I honestly felt like it was 20 minutes long. Like, that whole episode was so intense and invigorating. I thought it was gonna go for at least another 25 minutes or so, and it cuts right there. So next week, we're looking for resolution with Ezekiel. We're going to get, there's no way they can get around the resolution with Rick and the guy who has him at gunpoint. Daryl is probably going to come in and take the guy out, or to some degree. I don't think he's going to kill him because there's going to be a dialogue where we fill in the gap of where he was in Atlanta and then how he got hooked up with the Saviors. So that's going to happen, but I'm pretty sure it'll be Daryl that comes in because they did split up. So Daryl's going to come in and take care of this guy to some degree. And then we're looking for resolution with Morgan and that whole group, because Morgan's at a breaking point too, which was also a really heavy moment where he's just in kill mode and he's just taking fools out. And then he runs into Jesus, and Jesus is like, no, we don't do this. These people have surrendered. They are now our prisoners. This is a better way, and that's the way that Morgan used to push for, is to not kill. If there's life, there's hope. And he has these flashbacks, and he's just, man, the complexity of these characters is so fantastic. Anyway, fantastic episode. Please watch it. I will do a couple of tweets, I feel like, next week when I watch next week's episode, just to get the conversation going before the video gets up on YouTube. So that is your supplemental review of this week's episode 2 for this season of The Walking Dead. Thank you once again. Before I cut off this supplemental, I know I didn't hit it in the video proper enough, so I'm going to say like, subscribe, share, all of the things. GenerallyNerdy.net is the website. Patreon.com/GenerallyNerdy if you like what I do here and you want to help keep it going. Definitely go over and even $1 a month will help me out. So, and there is an option to get $1 a month. You get all these videos early. There's a couple other benefits, so on and so forth. So thank you guys for watching, and now let's get back to the Week in Nerddom proper.
This is going to be an epic season. This is going to be so incredible. I feel like, so before I move on, I feel like what we're doing in the show, the pace at which we're going, it seems like they're planning on connecting to some degree the comic books and the movie. They're going to be not connecting like, oh, you're going to see some character that's in the books that's not in the show, and they're going to show up in the show. I don't think that necessarily. I think they want to get to a point where people don't know what's coming. So they're kind of going around certain things. They're not hitting certain story arcs. because they want to catch up to the comics, because there's still a lot of room between where the story is in the books versus where the story is in the show. I think they want to close that gap so that people will not have as much of an idea of what's going to happen. And then my other thought about this is, now that we're losing one of our showrunners, are they still going to stick quasi close with that comic book? I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, or is that going to be a way that he still has control over the TV show? I don't know. That's something to discuss down in the comment section. And then Inhumans. No, we're not going to talk necessarily about an episode of the Inhumans. We're going to talk about IMAX's press release that happened this week, where they're talking about what they blame the poor reception of Inhumans on. And it's... they're blaming the marketing. They're saying, oh, well, the people wanted something and they didn't get what they wanted, and so that's why it's had such poor reviews. They wanted more of a movie experience, and instead they got 2 episodes of a TV show with a TV show budget, and it just wasn't the same. It wasn't the same experience because of the technical aspects. I don't think that's it. I mean, I don't work for IMAX. I don't work for anyone involved with making this. I haven't seen these numbers that I'm sure that they have. I think it's because it's poorly acted. I think it's because there's nothing about this show that is good. There's no technical aspect about this show that's good. There's no the human element about this show that is really worth rewatching. Like, you watch it once and you go, God, I wish I could get my hour back. So yeah, I don't think it's because people wanted a movie experience. I think it's because they wanted a good television experience, and that's what they didn't get. I'm pretty sure they walked into the test screening, or to the IMAX big event deal screening, and saw 2 episodes of this show and went, oh, that wasn't a movie. No, that's not what happened. They walked in and saw 2 episodes of this show and went, man, there's better stuff on the CW. Like, everything on the CW is better than this. This is crap. And that's why you got poor results. And then last bit of TV news. I told you we're talking some Funimation. As it turns out, Sony has bought Funimation. Sony has like the lion's share of the company. They bought it for $143 million. So the Funimation CEO has, I think it's like 5% of the company, Jen Fukunaga. If you were watching this and you like anime and you don't know what Funimation is, definitely go check them out. Some of the best anime shows have been brought stateside because Funimation exists. Samurai Champloo was Funimation. I'm pretty sure Trigun was brought over because of Funimation, and also Cartoon Network. Cowboy Bebop is another one that was Funimation and Cartoon Network. Shokugeki no Soma was Funimation, I'm pretty sure. So definitely this is really cool news, because Sony has a lot of money and they can put some of that money into Funimation, and then we can get some more great anime properties brought over stateside. That is the end of the television section. Oh, how can I forget this? That is not the end of the television section. We have one more fantastic piece of news. We have a showrunner. Well, we have a producer anyway. I don't know if he's going to be the showrunner or if Patrick Rothfuss is going to be the showrunner. And since I just said the name Patrick Rothfuss, you got to know what I'm talking about. King Killers. We have a producer in Lin-Manuel Miranda, who is like friggin' Hollywood wonderkind right now. Rothfuss is definitely still involved, but so to quote Rothfuss quoting Lin-Manuel Miranda, Miranda walked in to his first day, his first meeting, and they were discussing what everyone was going to do, and Miranda just said, I want to be the head of the Don't Fuck It Up committee. His words, not mine. And Rothfuss said, oh, well, I want to be on that committee too. I can't be the head because I'm too close to it, but I want to be part of that committee. So we have a set of producers. And then we also, we know Lionsgate bought the rights to do a video game, a television series, and a movie. Who are they going to distribute the television series and the video game through? We don't know. Or do we? The television series, at the very least, we don't know about the video game just yet. We know it's in production to some degree. Which degree that is, I don't know yet. But the television series is going to be put out through Showtime. So now the industry is going, well, is this Showtime's Game of Thrones? I don't think that's a fair comparison to make at all. Game of Thrones is a fantastic piece of fantasy literature. King Killer Chronicles is a fantastic piece of literature. Yes, technically it is fantasy as well, but the difference between the two of them is so vast, and the quality of King Killers is to such a degree that to pigeonhole it as just fantasy is putting it in this realm that it does not deserve to be in. So, no, this isn't going to be Showtime's Game of Thrones. This is going to be Showtime's flagship, best damn show ever, so long as they don't mess it up like Miranda doesn't want them to. I am so excited for this to happen. Another difference between the two of them. So the storytelling style of Game of Thrones is one that follows multiple branches, right? Where we follow all of the characters. In King Killer, we follow Quoth. That's it. And I know some people are going to be upset by the way I pronounce Quoth's name. That's how Rothfuss pronounces it. Some fans of it pronounce it Quoth, like Quoth the Raven. Rothfuss pronounces the V instead of making it a U sound, so it's Quoth. He says it a little fast, so it kind of sounds like Quoth, but he definitely says the V. Anyway, so the difference is we get more of a singular view of this world versus Game of Thrones. We get the narrator's view of this world, which is all-encompassing. So there's less. I feel like there's less adventure, and King Killer is all adventure. So different. It's apples and oranges, man. Just because they're technically the same genre of fiction does not mean you can make those comparisons. And that, my friends, let me double check. Yes, that is the end of television. We are now moving in to music news. Music news. We're not going to have video games. We've already done video games. We're not going to have comic books or books, although we kind of touched on the books with Rothfuss. We're not going to have either of those two sections this week. I just didn't. There was too much stuff to talk about on TV. I wanted to keep the timing roughly similar, so I cut out comic books. We will do a big section of comic books next week when hopefully there is less television to discuss. Anyway, so our final section of the week is music, and it's going to be a relatively short section. To start, we have a quasi-announcement for the next Eminem album. Also, if you've watched previous episodes, I don't talk about a lot of music necessarily because I don't like a lot of music. I mean, I take that back. I like all kinds of music. It's just new music is boring to me. That being said, I wanted to branch out a little bit this week and cover more than just the one or two metal news things that I talk about. There is a little bit of metal in this week, but there's a little bit of other stuff too. So, Eminem. there's a quasi announcement about the next Eminem album. It'll be his 9th studio album. Paul Rosenberg, his manager, who is now the head of Def Jam Records, tweeted out a picture of Yellow Wolf's new album, which hasn't hit yet. I think it hits next week. It drops. His album drops. I'm not going to say that. So, Yellow Wolf's album, he tweeted a picture of it, and in the background there was an image that a lot of people on Reddit, because everyone on Reddit has all the time in the world, kind of saw it and thought it was weird, so they did some research, and it turns out the ad in the background is for a product that doesn't exist. It's for a drug called Revival, and the E in Revival was backwards the way Eminem puts his E backwards, and then upon even more research, it seems that the ad is a real ad. It wasn't put in there by Photoshop or anything, but the ad was bought by Def Jam about a week before the picture was taken, and there's an 800 number and all of this really crazy, like, borderline alternate reality marketing behind this potentially what is going to be Eminem's 9th studio album, which is going to be Revival. That's all we really know about it. I think it's kind of a cool way to do your marketing, man. Anyway, so Eminem is working on a new album. I didn't know this. I'm sure anyone who listens to rap hip-hop knew this, but I am so removed from most genres that I didn't know that. And it's fun. I really like Eminem. I really think he's one of the most talented lyricists ever. That being said, let's move on. This is a little bit of Slipknot news, and kind of indirectly Slipknot news, because it's more Joey Jordison. And by more Joey Jordison, I mean all Joey Jordison. Joey Jordison, the ex-primary drummer for Slipknot, because yes, Slipknot has 3 drummers, and one of them is the one that does most of the drumming, and the other 2 are more for atmosphere and just to be goofs on stage. Joey Jordison he did a band called Vitric or Visic or something like that. I didn't hear any of the stuff in there. But he is now in a band called Sinsanum. I don't know. Death metal bands they're trying to find the coolest word to name their band, man, and then they're going to design it in such a way that you can't read it anyway, so what does it matter? Anyway, that's just me, and I'm a jerk. But he's in a new band called Sinsanum. Yeah, I think that's right. With the old bass player from Dragon Force. So that's kind of cool. They put out one album already. Apparently it came out with rave reviews. I didn't know it existed, so I haven't listened to it yet. I'm going to listen to it, but the piece of news we're going for is they're putting out a new EP, so a short album, 6 tracks. It'll hit November 10th. And if their first album was critically acclaimed, then I would imagine they'll just continue on that same path. I want to listen to their actual album, and then we can discuss that probably in a specific music episode. And then I have 2 pop updates, and one of them is debatable because it's Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift started as a pop country, but still country singer. It would appear her last 2 records have been just pop without the country, and her newest record that is I think not out yet, but she keeps putting out singles, and everybody's going, "Oh, Tay-Tay, she's going crazy, and she can rap now, and all of the things." She put out another single, and the video's interesting, I guess. It's pretty heavy-handed with its references to like a future in which people are cyborgs, a la Ghost in the Shell, and like she even kind of wears the major outfit inside the square box thing. But anyway, the song itself is crap, man. Like, I really appreciate the niche that Taylor Swift found for herself with her early stuff, with her country music. And yes, I understand that as an artist you want to grow and you want to change. I don't feel that the change that she has done is good change. She is, to some degree, becoming something that she once mocked. It was something that she once sang about in a negative way. I don't appreciate this new record. I've listened to, I think, like 3 songs off of it so far, just because everyone has listened to these first 3 songs off of it so far. And the production value is overdone. There's no transience in any of this music. It's so washed out, and it's, yeah, sure, you can crank it and it's loud and like all of the things, you can hear all of the different instruments, but it's just a wash of noise. It's almost the level of noise of like death metal stuff. And I know that's a very strange comparison to make, Taylor Swift and death metal, but production value wise, if you listen to a death metal album, then you're going to hear a lot of distortion. You're going to hear an excessive amount of notes, and the combination of those two things kind of makes a fuzzy sound. It's just a general. I say it regularly. I can go to sleep listening to death metal music because it's just fuzz after a certain point. And that is the level of noise that Taylor Swift's producer has given her for this new album. It's just fuzz. There's no definition inside of the music. Yeah, you can make the argument that her lyrics, her vocals, have some dynamic range a little bit, but for the most part, there's so much compression, even on the vocal, that you lose character. And part of the thing that I would justifiably listen to Taylor Swift on occasion is because of the character of the music. Because even pop country, when done right, is good. And this is no longer good. This has crossed the threshold into easily digestible by the masses crap. And there's no thought that you have to put into it. Anyway, I'm giving too much to something I don't appreciate. The last bit of news for this week's Week in Nerddom has to do with Justin Timberlake. Yes, I listen to Justin Timberlake. I have all of Justin Timberlake's albums. I think Justin Timberlake is possibly one of the best pop vocalists ever. I think he also has some of the best comedic timing you're ever going to see in Hollywood. I think Justin Timberlake is great. Now, that being said, it was announced, I think it was 2 weeks ago, not this last week, but 2 weeks ago, that he is going to be the primary musical act at this year's Super Bowl halftime show, which has then opened the floodgates for everyone to say, well, is he going to invite Janet Jackson to be part of it? Is he going to do an NSYNC reunion? Man, I honestly hope, I think it would be cool to bring Janet Jackson back. She hasn't done anything of real relevance recently, so I feel like I know she's still making music, but the fact that I haven't heard any of it and I haven't seen any news around it kind of tells me that there's not any relevancy to it. So I feel like that could lend to her credibility a little bit. And I feel like instead of doing an NSYNC reunion, which would be bad. I don't own any NSYNC albums, so don't I don't want to hear about that in the comments. But I've always wanted, and I really always appreciate when it does happen, which is very, very rarely, when like a legitimate rock and roll act, somebody who actually plays their instrument, who has gone through the school of hard knocks and wasn't just found by some producer and then given some beats to sing over. I feel like he should get some new. I mean, I would love it if it was a metal band, but that's never going to happen. My big goal as a music person who is only vaguely even in the industry at this point is to get someone like Justin Timberlake or even Justin Bieber to do guest vocals on like a Lamb of God record. I think that would be so epic. Anyway, I feel like some solid rock and roll act needs to, and I don't know who that is because pop rock is almost a dying. Maybe AWOL Nation, even though they're not really all that rock and roll. Imagine Dragons, they're a little more rockin'. Somebody who's got a solid existence in the pop world, but is also still a solid rock and roll act. I feel like that will be a better show than if he does an NSYNC reunion. Although I feel like there is a stronger possibility that we'll get the boys from NSYNC, and that's sad. Anyway, that is the end of your week in Nerdom. Thank you guys very, very much for sticking around to the end. If you like what's going on here, if you like these videos, definitely hit the thumbs up button. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. You can always find everything going on over the website, www.generallynerdy.net. Hit up the Patreon, patreon.com/generallynerdy. Support me if you do like what's going on here. And that's all the things, man. I do have to remind you, though, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.